And just like that, the Lions are 1-0 up in the series. They came into Suncorp in Brisbane on a Saturday night and they absolutely did the job on the Wallabies. Welcome back to the channel. I was hoping to do this video in the stadium like I usually do, but it hit midnight, we got kicked out, so we're back at the hotel, and I thought I'd do it here. So drop a comment down below. What did you make of the performance? What did you make of the game? And what does it make you feel for the rest of the series? Those are probably kind of the points that I'll cover off, plus the individual performances. Finn Russell, Ellis Genge, Tom Curry, Tyg Burn, that I'll get into. There were some really, really good individual performances for the Lions. So I'll get into all of that. You can have your say in the comment section. If you also feel like hitting a thumbs up and dropping a like on the video, then I'd really appreciate it. And most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss a thing. So, I thought the Lions in the first half an hour of that game were absolutely sensational. When we saw the team selection, and I spoke about this in the videos over the last couple of days, it pointed towards power. It pointed towards a Lions pack that wanted to absolutely take it to the Wallabies physically. And that's exactly what they did. And Australia honestly couldn't cope with them. At one point you were thinking this is going to be a record score, or this is going to be a margin of victory that is pretty embarrassing. It wasn't that in the end, partly because Australia got better, partly I think the Lions slipped off a little bit, but I don't think the final score was actually a reflection of the Lions' dominance. And it started early on, like every carry, Australia couldn't cope. And then when the Wallabies did get the ball, they weren't able to create anything, they weren't able to make any dents in that Lions defensive line. I just thought it was a really assertive, impressive, dominant Lions performance. It was what they set their stall out to do, and it's what they absolutely delivered. And I guess my concern from an Australia point of view is how do they live with that going forward in the series? Because if I'm in that Lions dressing room, I'm looking around and saying, boys, if we produce that again, we don't even have to produce it for a whole game because they didn't here. But if we can produce close to that for similar to what we did here, they can't live with us. They cannot live with us. And I think that's a massive worry in terms of the series, and just if you're an Australian rugby fan, of how do they get back into this? How do they come from 2 games down? And I was saying in the build-up that I felt like Australia needed to win this game for the series. And I stand by that. I do fear somewhat that we're going to get a test series that isn't particularly competitive, that doesn't become the kind of frontline main event that it has the potential to do. We'll see when we get to Melbourne, another game in, whether the Wallabies can be any better, but you'd expect the Lions to kick on from this as well. I thought they were really, really good. I thought they were really impressive in the first half, and a number of individual performances. Let's start with Finn Russell. I'll get onto the other guys because that links back to the physicality. Finn Russell is a guy, I remember being at Twickenham in the Six Nations when Finn Russell missed that conversion, which would have won Scotland the game. And I was very much in the camp that I looked at that and thought, Finn Russell, great player, but in some of those key moments off the tee or whatever it might be, is he not quite the player you want in the biggest games and the biggest moments? And I was totally wrong. He has had such a brilliant season with Bath, and he is so clearly the best 10 in Britain and Ireland at the moment. He's almost one of those players that when you watch him, he's so good that it looks like he has more time than everyone else. You know, those players, it just feels like they have longer to make decisions and therefore their decisions are better, but he's so in control of his game at the moment. And actually, I think importantly, is he is a far more all-round fly half than he has ever been previously. He's built that into his game over years and years. I think going to Bath has really helped him in that regard, but he can almost implement any sort of game plan you want, I think. I thought he was excellent tonight. The pass for the Tuipulotu try at the start, some of his kicking game, just a really assured, classy operator. Elsewhere though, let's get into some of the forwards. Ellis Genge, I think, is playing the best he has in his career, in my view. I think how good he's been on this tour, how consistent he's been on this tour is excellent. His carrying is really good. His scrummaging wasn't as good today, but I don't think that was his fault. The scrums were kind of messy. Tyg Furlong actually said that in the mix zone after. It was kind of messy scrummaging today. It was hard to get going. But I think Genge has been excellent, absolutely outstanding. Just his carrying is so explosive, he's so physical. And talking of physicality, Tyg Burn, Tom Curry. So as I mentioned, when the team was announced, I think they were 2 players, along with Tyg Furlong as well, who was very good tonight, by the way. They were 2 players that well, they're based upon experience rather than form, which I don't think is a controversial thing to say. I think there are sevens that had been in better form than Tom Curry on this tour. I think there were other options at blindside who had been in better form than Tyg Burn. But I guess the reason you pick those players is because they have been there and done it. And because you know when the biggest games come around, they have an understanding of how to get the best out of themselves and what sort of performance level they need to deliver. And boy, did we see that today. Like Tom Curry and Tyg Burn were outstanding, I thought. From the very first whistle, like some of the early hits, it was like they were almost the barometer for the team, I thought. They were like the tone setters of what the Lions wanted to do. They went out and did it in the first couple of minutes. And that just set them up, and that kind of, you know, because we could chat about McCarthy and Tyg Furlong, who I mentioned, or Dan Sheehan, or it just set the tone for all of those guys to have such an imposing, dominant, physical performance. As you can probably tell, I was really impressed with them in the opening half an hour. Where else can we talk about in terms of the Lions? I guess the question now really is, how do the Wallabies come back into this? And this is where I am fearful. I really want us to have a good test series. That's why I wanted the Wallabies to win tonight, because I just think it would have set it up so brilliantly. Because they'd have caused an upset when everyone had written them off. Whereas I feel like a lot of what we saw tonight was confirmation of our concerns about the Wallabies. I think they clearly missed Skelton and Valentini. I actually think now, having seen the game tonight, Valentini more than Skelton. Because obviously Skelton is such a huge second row, but he hasn't played that much rugby, whereas you feel they almost need the dynamism of a Valentini. They were calling out for that. Poor Tom Liner at 10. Someone said to me, apparently Dan Bigger said on Sky, that you could put Dan Carter behind the Wallabies pack today and it wouldn't have made too much of a difference. Like, it wasn't Tom Liner's fault. They couldn't get anything going. And Jorgensen scored the great try, the kind of aerial game which we'd spoken about that could have been key here for Australia. So hopefully Valentini and Skelton are back. I think Valentini in particular is important. That hopefully will give them some more front foot ball, which means if it is Liner at 10, they're able to do more with it. But just, yeah, I don't know. I thought that opening 20 minutes for me, the sides looked totally mismatched. And now it's on the Wallabies. Go to a place you haven't been to before. Find your desperation, your desire, your intensity, because it's going to take something, I think, pretty special for them to win at the MCG. I think they can do it. I hope they do it, because I think we want to see a decider. But the evidence for me tonight was that the Lions are comfortably the better team here. Were you a bit disappointed in the Wallabies? In a sense, that's harsh, because it's incredibly difficult to affect the game in the way you want to when you're coming up against what they were in the first half in particular. Like, it wasn't just the Wallabies being poor, it was a lot to do with the Lions being good. But I just kind of expected Joe Schmidt's team to be able to, I don't know, throw a few more punches maybe, or do something a little differently that caused the Lions more problems. They were better in the second half, and maybe if you're a Wallabies fan, you look at the second half and you say, that's the building blocks, that's the platform, let's build on that some more, and that can take us into the game at the MCG. But I just wonder whether they quite have what it is going to take to live with the Lions in this series. And I hope they do, because 3-0 isn't really that fun, is it? Particularly if it's like games we saw tonight, which, let's be honest, it wasn't exactly a classic Lions test match, but it is a win for the Lions. So fair play to them. Give me your thoughts in the comments, like the video as well, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.